Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Juliette and I will be your host. Before we get started, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat window and we'll have an open Q&A session at the end. Okay, let's begin with an introduction of today's speaker. Jeff, would you like to start?
Yeah, hello everybody. So my name is Jean-François Piot. I'm VP Product Marketing at GSX. And we have Garth as well with us.
Hello everyone, my name is Garth Fisher. I'm an MCSE of Productivity as well as a Client Satisfaction Engineer here at GSX.
Okay, good. So I guess we can go directly to the agenda. So today we will cover a very important topic for organizations using cloud services and especially Office 365. So I will speak first about Microsoft Contract, Office 365 Service Management, and how to integrate that service into your cloud service delivery management. After reviewing the term of Microsoft SLA and the way they advise you to handle your end-to-end services, we will continue with the best practices regarding cloud service management, and we will provide real-life example of an Office 365 IT service management implementation. So with software as a service like Office 365, the role of the admin teams has really shifted from something like infrastructure support and maintenance to service management. And yet you still have to manage your end user expectation, reduce your number of issues, reduce your mean time to repair, and justify the best possible service delivery to your user. So that's what this webinar is about. So, I mean, let's go on our first topic, the Microsoft Office 365 contract management. Let's speak about the SLA, what's inside, and how to manage that. So contracting with Microsoft Office 365 offers you the best-in-class collaboration SaaS application. And that comes with several guarantees in terms of availability of the service from a Microsoft perspective. A SLA is a kind of insurance against service disruption. So the first thing with insurance that you have to wonder is, what are the limitations of your insurance? And basically, they concern anything happening outside of reasonable control, it's what we call force majeure, anything happening outside of the data center, anything that is caused by your company. So for example, if you have been irrespective of Microsoft recommendation, bad configuration, bandwidth problem, these kind of things. And of course, any downtime happening during scheduled downtime. So only the service delivered to the edge of their data center is guaranteed, provided that you didn't contribute it to make it fail. So to be clear, the service delivered to your end user is not guaranteed by Microsoft SLA. And that's completely normal, as Microsoft is not running your network, is not running your ISV, or it's not running your own infrastructure. So now that we understand what is excluded, let's understand what the famous 99.9% means for you. Microsoft calculates a downtime ratio based on your total number of user minutes of use of the service. We see the calculation on the slide here on the right. So a downtime only counts for users that are impacted. So you might understand that you need a big incident to go under 99.9% of availability. If you do the short calculations that you can see on the right, and if you say that you have a company with 10,000 users, in order to breach a 99.9% SLA, you will need, for example, to have an outage of more than 44,000 user minutes of downtime per month. That means almost 45 minutes of downtime for 1,000 of your users every month. So you see, you really need to have a big incident in order to breach this kind of SLA. So we now understand the general limitations of the contract and what is generally insured, this famous 99.9%. So let's check now what counts as a service. What does it mean, a service in the Microsoft contract? So for your user, Exchange Online encompasses a wide range of actions, including accessing mailbox from Outlook, sending email, creating meetings, checking FreeBusy, etc. But in the Microsoft SLA, the only service guarantee for Exchange Online is the ability to send or receive email with Outlook Web Access. So any other Exchange feature, of course, are excluded from the SLA. And if you think about it, it's completely normal because each environment is so unique that Microsoft can only guarantee a service that they entirely control. For example, do you know the availability of the service that you deliver to your user using Outlook 2016 on a Windows 10 operating system for Exchange Online? I mean, there's a good chance that you don't. So how could Microsoft guarantee a service if you don't even have the metric yourself? So let's continue with Teams. For Teams, the calculation is the same. User minute minus user minute downtime divided by the total number of user minutes. And the service that is guaranteed is the ability for a user to read or post to chat conversation, for which, of course, they have appropriate permissions. If you look at OneDrive, the only service guarantees the ability for a user to view or edit files that are stored on their personal OneDrive for business storage. For SharePoint, it's kind of the same. It's the ability for a user to read or write a portion of SharePoint Online Site Collection. And for Skype, it's a little bit different. Skype for Business have at least 3 different SLA. And it has one SLA that is a kind of a performance SLA. The first SLA on Skype is based on the ability for a user to see present status, instant messaging conversation, initiate online meeting. The second is based on PSTN calling and conferencing. So basically, it's guaranteed that your users are able to initiate PSTN call or conferences. And the last one is about Skype voice quality. So for that, Microsoft basically calculates an index, certainly a network MOS, that predicts what would be the end user call quality ranking. Then they checked how long these poor quality calls last and provide the same kind of ratio that we have seen. To have more information about Skype for Business voice quality monitoring, you can watch one of our past webinars or read our JSX Robotech article that are dealing with this kind of topic. So again, there is no, for Microsoft, they provide this kind of service, this kind of guarantee inside, again, the data center, because there's no way for Microsoft to be able to provide this kind of SLA if they take into account things that they are not controlling, like the latency of your ISV or the latency of your infrastructure. So at this point, to maximize your relationship with Microsoft, we would really recommend you to read your contract, for sure, and make sure that you differentiate what Microsoft promises you and what you are promising to your business line. Microsoft SLAs are a very good starting point to ensure service, but they cannot be the unique basis for your service delivery. And in fact, what we have seen at our customer is that 90% of the time, a user performance issue, when there is a user performance issue, the root cause is generally found outside Microsoft's range of responsibility. So you need to implement cloud service delivery best practices to deal with this kind of user issue. But let's say that you have identified issue and you want to talk with Microsoft, and Microsoft is really here to help you, but they cannot help you without data. So to help you, Microsoft needs to have a certain number of statistics and facts. So they ask you to provide detailed description of the incident, information regarding time and duration of the downtime, number of location and affected user, and of course, description of what you tried to resolve the incident. So the question is for you, how do you collect this information? Basically, to collect this information, to provide this information, you need statistics. So to collect them, you can either deploy and maintain complex scripts running from every location, alerting you, feeding database that will be then shared with Microsoft. So it's kind of a complex job to do. Or you can use third-party solution tools like JSX, Gizmo, and our Robot User for Office 365. So the JSX Robot User are small Windows service that you can install anywhere you want that are acting exactly as a user would do on Office 365 and performing all this kind of complex scenario that you need to do. They alert you in case of problem, and of course they provide the information through a database that you can use with Power BI or any BI solution. So we will see that after. Garth will show you how you can easily do that with our solution. So finally, before reaching Microsoft, you need to go through incident analysis to make sure that you are not responsible for what is happening. So let me show you a way to share all this data with Power BI, just to give you a glance of what Garth will explain you after. So if we go on the next slide, here's an example. It's a screenshot, but we will go in Power BI live right after. It's an example of Exchange Online service level dashboard that you can easily get on Power BI with the JS6 Gizmo robot user data. I will go fast again. Garth will go on and live in Power BI at the end of this webinar. So what we can see here is that you can have the service delivered per location, but also per action that your users are performing. So thanks to this kind of service level dashboard, you not only have the service availability, but you also have the performance that you deliver and reach on a daily or a monthly basis. It is also a perfect way to share your data with Microsoft to help them helping you. So we built this dashboard thanks to Microsoft and Gartner recommendation that we are now about to detail. So let's see now what Microsoft recommends you to manage the service delivery of Office 365. So there's a series of blogs that you can find on TechNet about modern service management, and the purpose here is to do a sum up, because I mean, if we go in detail, it will take hours. So what I provide you here is a sum up of all these blogs, but that again, if you are interested, you can read on the Microsoft TechNet. So Microsoft defines modern service management as a way to ensure business consumption and productivity, and this model is based on 4 big pillars. So let's start with the service desk, a bit in the middle. Service desk and normal incident management needs processes in place to support the user and in their day-to-day life. So for that, Microsoft recommends you to leverage automation investment from the Office 365 service. They also recommend to use your existing ticketing tools to measure the number of tickets and escalation rates in order for you to focus on the right area, basically where you have the many problems. Regarding administration and feature management, you should use every tool, again, that Microsoft provides to manage the workload and the configuration. Finally, maybe you discover, and I discovered that when I was preparing this webinar, the evergreen management, and it defines the processes in place to test, implement, and be ready for the continuous improvement that Microsoft implements into Office 365 regularly. Basically, there's always new feature, and so that's what they call the evergreen management. And of course, you need to get ahead of that. So to manage that, you should make someone accountable on a daily basis for the triage of the message center content and the integration of the notification into your existing tooling. Assigning responsibility on someone's head is very important, and they really tells you that you should make people accountable and not make team accountable. It's very important. So you should stay current as well by, of course, reading blogs, TechNet, and the message center notification to understand when new features will be implemented and how they could impact your end user experience. So let's now focus on the first block, monitoring and major incident management. So basically, define the process that ensures the detection and troubleshooting of end user service delivery, regardless of the root cause. So the main challenge for you here is to bring back visibility on the service that you actually deliver to your end user. And for that, Microsoft recommends to integrate the Office 365 Service Health Dashboard notification into your existing incident workflow and tools. They also recommend to combine this information with end-to-end monitoring scenario that will measure the true end user experience for each main capabilities of Office 365. So what does it mean, capabilities? Basically, the capabilities is an action that a user is able to do on Office 365. So for example, on Exchange, it would be login via Outlook, mail flow, mobile synchronization. For SharePoint or OneDrive, it would be login, download, upload. And for Skype for Business Online, it would be login via Skype client, instant messaging, voice call, etc. So as we can see, Microsoft clearly states that you need to have visibility on what your users are able to accomplish with Office 365 and from an end-to-end perspective. So to complete this first set of recommendations, we would recommend you as well to find a right balance between measuring too many complex scenarios that would quickly not be manageable and not measuring enough, thus decreasing the visibility you would have on the service that you deliver. We will see later that availability only is not as well enough. You need to have performance management too, and mostly because the limits between availability and performance sometimes is a bit blurred, especially when you speak to end user. So basically, you should get the measure of what mostly creates user complaint and tickets to your service desk. So if we take the example of Exchange Online again, I mean, this scenario, login, mail flow, mobile sync, are a first good start. But you should include as well, for example, the ability and performance of meeting creation. FreeBusy, for example, that we know is a big generator of tickets on service desk and service incidents. The availability and performance of the search as well through mailbox is very important, or download attachment as well. That would give you a good first step of visibility for your service delivery on Exchange. So as I already mentioned, the JSX Gizmo robot user have been designed to perform really all these end user transactions, to measure all of that, and to provide you with all the data you need to implement this kind of recommendation. And that is why we have been approved by Microsoft to deliver our solution, both on the Azure Marketplace, you can find us there, and as well on Microsoft Office 365 App Source. So to finish with Microsoft recommendation about Office 365 Service Management, it's also interesting to understand how they are organized to manage the incident and communicate them. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see a bit the different people that are working on this kind of things. So within Microsoft 365 organization, you have multiple teams that work together to prevent and communicate about service outages. For that, you have incident manager, so they have deep expertise in the relevant area. They are determine the scope of outage and the root cause, and then, of course, they go through incident resolution. You have communication manager that also have deep expertise and that coordinate and provide information across internal team at Microsoft and post-customer-facing communication to the service health dashboard. Then you have the support that provide 24/7 customer phone and web support. And finally, you have the service account management that are account representatives that you may know and that escalate the ticket and can provide rapid on-site support. Below, you can see the communication process that Microsoft follow for each incident. So you don't have to entirely replicate the Microsoft Service Incident Organization, but it gives you a good idea on how you could be organized, especially if you are a large organization. So far, we have checked the fine print of the service delivery contract with Microsoft. We have explored what they recommend to ensure the best possible service delivery to your end user. But in order to maximize your return on investment, you must take these recommendations to another level. Because basically, Office 365 is not the only SaaS provider on the planet, and best practices for cloud service delivery have been developed and refined for many years. So let's have a quick glance on that. And then we will go on the dashboard that you can create to manage your service delivery. So as you may know, the ITSM represents how to manage, operate, and transition technology, but also design services, manage risk within the organization. So we'll go through each type of service, and then we go to our example. In terms of service strategy, your goal is, of course, to avoid the risk of shadow IT. So for that, you need to understand the use of the current solution, overall business need, and anticipate new services. When you think of service design and service operation, it can be a headache. So the challenge here is to first define what service you want to manage. And we've seen that even for Exchange Online, it's kind of difficult to define what is exactly a service. And we will come back on that later. So after that, you need to define service level targets instead of SLA. Service level targets are usually better inside the organization because they are based on best efforts and they are not correlated with penalties. So you cannot take a risk of really an internal SLA when you are not controlling the entire route of the service to the end user. Service level targets should be defined with the business lines at the location level per country or region and should not, of course, forget your mobile user. And this is why you need to have a way to measure as well the mobile user experience when it makes sense. So defining this kind of service level target will enable you to start working on a continuous service and to pinpoint the issue and justify your investment and your success. So let's finish on the cloud management best practices. And regarding the service transition and change management, I mean, it's the same. The continuous migration between on-premise devices to mobile and the access to hybrid cloud system complexifies the job of IT administrator. So to face that challenge, you really should ensure the monitoring of the health and usage of your complex hybrid entities management, such as ADFS, ADFS proxy, Azure AD Connect, of course. Now let's talk about service improvement. Here again, it's even harder than before because you can only improve what you can measure. So for that, you need to implement a way to continuously measure again the end user services that you really deliver to your location. And we already explained how you can do that with the JSX Gizmo robot user. So finally, regarding service incident and service desk, we've seen what Microsoft is recommending. We've seen what you can, how JSX can help you on that. Just a few additional comments here. You should need to correlate the end user experience with the health of every component that impacts this end user experience. And that's why you need the Microsoft Service Health Dashboard as well. Because you need to determine quickly if it's a local or tenant-wide issue. You need to know if anything that can impact the end user experience is having a problem. And then you need to immediately be able to share the information in order to breach the silos that you see in the IT department. That will drastically reduce your mean time to repair and improve the overall process of incident resolution, incident assignment, and of course, incident analysis and evaluation. So we've seen all the aspects of the IT service management now that we need to put in place in order to deploy cloud service management. But now we should focus a little bit more on the service level target that you want to implement in your company. So next slide. We've seen all about the cloud IT service management, and now we want to define what level of service we want to reach. Again, from a user perspective, the notion of availability and performance are really intricate. I mean, when it's too slow, and maybe it's true for you too, but when it's too slow, for you it's almost the same that it's when it's not available. So for a user perspective, the user is as much interested in performance as availability of the service. So now we have to set what level of availability and performance we want to define in our service level target and how to put them in place. First, you need a way to test continuously the service, that's for sure. Again, one of the best ways to do that is the JSX robot user. The purpose is to define baseline in terms of availability and performance on a stable environment at the location level and action per action. And this baseline should recognize pattern of utilization because usage varies during the day, the week, the month, and even the year. So you need to understand this pattern and adapt to them. Then you have the baseline, and you can start to define threshold on service delivery for alerting purposes, because being alerted on any service degradation allows you, of course, to quickly react and so to work on the problem before your users are impacted. So now that you have the baseline, you know your threshold, now you can calculate a target in terms of minutes of downtime per month that provide a good balance between the necessary business needs and also the resource that you really have. So you can have a service availability, for example, at 99.9 if you want to copy Microsoft, but it should be usually a bit lower because, I mean, there's plenty of other things that impact it, like your ISV, for example. Then you can define the service level target latency threshold. So again, action per action. So for example, 500 minutes gone to download the document of 1 megabyte. And then you need to define the service performance target that you want to reach. So for example, I want 95% of my time to deliver the service within being below the threshold of 500 minutes gone to perform this action. So now that we have this service level target in place, now you need to be able to measure them and you need to be able to enforce them. So here we come on the last part, that is the service capability monitoring. That defines the ability of your own environment to deliver the cloud service. Your environment is, of course, your hybrid component, your network, your internal application using the cloud service, and generally everything that can impact the end user experience. So what's critical here is to be able to measure and correlate this information. For that, you need to have a single pane of glass that bridges silos of your IT environment and display in real time the health and main usage statistics of every component that can impact your service level target. JSX Gizmo for 365 at the moment is really the only tool on the market that provides you this kind of correlation between end user experience and everything that can impact your end user experience. So we have pretty much covered the essential point of the service delivery management now. So let's continue with the last point on dashboard. And let's see what Gartner recommends on dashboard. So for Gartner, service dashboard needs to be able to show the end user experience availability and performance condition. It needs to help you to define the root cause analysis and to allow trending and planning of the past statistics while providing insight about what might happen in the future. So the purpose of the service delivery dashboard, again, is to bridge the silos that exist across IT departments, and it provides a common source of reliable statistics that display and explain the end-user performance and the health of impacting infrastructure components. So Gartner have different names for the service level dashboard, but we see that's kind of the same as what we have seen when we speak about ITIL and cloud service delivery. So the Gartner name for service delivery dashboard is basically top-level business and end-user experience dashboard. The name of the service incident dashboard is the triage dashboard. And they also mention a depending mapping dashboard that helps identify hybrid cloud component at stake. So for example, a dashboard about ADFS proxy or these kind of things. And we will see that in the example right after. So as we can see, Gartner Service Management Dashboard are completely in line with Microsoft recommendation and the ITSM best practices. So when it comes to cloud service delivery management. So let's now see how JSX Gizmo for Office 365 enable you to manage this service delivery. So for that, we'll show you some example. I will just explain the example, introduce the example now, and then I will let Garth to show them. So we will focus on Exchange Online Service. So in our process, the first dashboard to create is a top-level business dashboard, the end-user experience dashboard. We will combine pure service availability statistics and service performance measure. So we will have information for each location we monitor, clearly show what the service level targets are from end-user performance point of view, and of course, action per action. The second step will be to integrate a service incident dashboard that is also called the triage dashboard by Gartner. So that will reflect the service capability monitoring we spoke earlier that shows the capability of your environment to handle the cloud service delivery to your user. So I've spoken a lot now, so I will keep it quiet, and I let Garth presenting you how you can use JSX Gizmo for Office 365 to manage your Office 365 service delivery and create the service availability and triage dashboard that you need. Garth?
Thanks, Jeff. That was a lot of great, insightful information there. Now, as Jeff mentioned, Microsoft recommends that we integrate the Office 365 Service Health Dashboard notifications into your existing incident workflow and tools. We also saw that Gartner recommends that you name your service delivery dashboard the top-level business and end-user experience dashboard. So for that, I have our JSX Gizmo top-level business real-time dashboard showing our Exchange Online user experiences. Before I show you that, it's important just to understand what we have going on here. So essentially, we're monitoring using our robot users from 3 separate locations, performing the same monitoring of Exchange Online. All robots are also under the same load. So we're monitoring out of our Boston location, our Pennsylvania location, and we also have one monitoring directly out of Azure. All right. So here you can see that the Boston location is in a degraded state, but because of our robot user monitoring, we were alerted before end users even noticed what was going on. So let's drill down to take a deeper look before we rush to make any conclusions. So as you can see here, that during that same time frame as Boston having an issue, when we check the Azure robot user, we see that during that same time span, it had no network issues or user experience issues. Everything was working perfectly fine. If for the same time frame we double check our PA robot user, we also see that this robot user also had 0 issues with the network or the user experience at the exact same time. And to further correlate the data, we're going to go ahead and check Office 365 Health also at that same point in time. So here, as you can see, Office 365 Exchange Online was reporting 0 issues during that same point in time Boston was having issues. So from the data that we've gathered, it is safe to say that Office 365 is meeting the defined Exchange Online SLA. But Boston is experiencing subpar performance. So now let's take a closer look at the Boston site to see exactly what was going on. So here we can see that Boston is clearly having issues with the network as well as the user experience. When we drill into the network piece, now that we've taken a closer look, we can see that the Boston location is clearly having network issues based around high round trip times, excessively high packet loss, as well as excessively high average packet loss. So now that we've seen all this, now is actually the perfect time to contact the Boston office's network team and have them investigate these excessive high metrics that we're seeing coming out of Boston. So basically to recap, with our GSX Gizmo real-time top-level business dashboards, you can easily get unbiased Exchange Online performance data from your most critical locations. We saw that Boston's users were experiencing subpar Exchange Online performance, but we also saw that at the same time, coming out of our Azure robot user as well as our PA locations, everything was perfectly fine. We also did a quick check on Office 365 Health that also shows that there were no issues at that time in the cloud. So it's safe to say that Boston is the only location that is having this issue. And after we took a deeper dive, we saw that it was based on network issues causing problems. So we can confidently reach out to the Boston office's network team and have them diagnose what is going on with the Boston network. And we can also, and of course, we did that without opening a ticket with Microsoft. So also, as Jeff mentioned earlier, Gartner's name for your service incident dashboard is the triage dashboard. That can help you analyze the main root causes of any user experience issues you're having. Now we're going to take a look at one of our real-time triage dashboards and see what we have there. So here I have our Office 365 real-time triage dashboard displayed. And as you can see from this view, it can really contain everything that you can show in real time that can impact the Office 365 end user experience. Now that is everything from, of course, ADFS, ADFS proxy, Azure AD Connect, any mail routing scenarios you may have configured, any active sync, SharePoint Online, you get the idea. You can have everything that can, impact your Office 365 end user experience. Now, if we just take a look at, say, Azure AD Connect, for example, you can see that the synchronization service is clearly down. So, being that the synchronization service is not running, no syncs are clearly not taking place. So here again, you can quickly contact the identity management team to resolve the issue without going in and contacting Microsoft, because again, the dashboard shows you the syncs are not going. So as you can see, these dashboards allow you to be proactive rather than reactive, so that the appropriate teams can be alerted to this issue before end users even realize what was going on. So now we've seen how our real-time top-level business dashboards and our real-time triage dashboards can help provide valuable insight into the state of the Office 365 service that's being delivered to your end users. This allows you to pinpoint the source of the issue and escalate to the appropriate internal teams rather than reaching out to Microsoft first. So now we're going to take a look at one of our Power BI triage dashboards to help you get a view of the long-term service level targets that you're trying to achieve. This way you can better understand how you deliver services to these locations over a long period of time. You can track the service level performance targets over time. And if you ever wanted to improve the level of service, you can see what part of the infrastructure is causing the issues. All right. So here we have our top level dashboard, and before we even get started, it's just going to be important to define a couple of the terms you're going to hear thrown around here. So I know Jeff touched briefly on SLT, or your service level target, but basically that is what you define as what is an acceptable threshold for each action before your end users complain. And it's also defined per location. So here you can see we have our service level target set for 98%, or 29 minutes of downtime per day. Some other terms you're going to hear me use are the percent EUE uptime overall, or the percent end user experience uptime overall. That is basically a mix of all the actions from all the different locations. As you can see here, overall it looks good, but we may not be as good as we think, as we'll see a little later. The next thing we're going to talk about is the percent EUE performance uptime. That refers to the percent end user experience performance uptime. So that's basically measuring any downtime as well as performance issues. In this case, it's measuring whether a user was able to perform the actions that were under the defined thresholds of our service level target. Underneath those numbers, you see here just specific performance uptime numbers based on open mailbox, search item, create meeting, etc. So basically, you can think of each action as a service that you deliver to your users. and we can track the delivery of the service on the main actions defined within your service level target. Also beneath that, we have our action latency stacked, which is basically, day-by-day metrics to compare the actions to find which actions are basically over your defined threshold or your service level targets. As you can see here, the search item is way worse than anything else. So again, overall, if you look at our service level target at 98%, and clearly overall from all the different locations, we're at 99. So, it looks like we're perfectly fine. But if we go over to the location side here and look at our top 5 critical locations, I can see that Boston is having excessively high warnings. So we're going to take a look at the locations now and view Boston statistics alone and to get a better idea of what's going on there. Okay, so again, since we've isolated Boston out of sight of all the different locations, you can now see that Boston is not necessarily meeting our service level target. We have that defined as 98%, and I know it's not much below, but either way, it's not meeting our targets. And you can see it's based on several of the actions that we've been talking about. So free busy isn't quite meeting our SLT, either is search item, and neither is the downloading of attachments. So we can see here that because we define service level targets at the actions and location levels, we can provide true visibility into each action because each action is using the service in a very different way. Now we're going to move on to our messaging triage dashboard. So based on the top level dashboard, clearly showing that Boston is having some type of a performance issue, we're going to drill in deeper into Boston using our messaging triage dashboard here. So as you can see, based on our our percent network performance uptime, that they're having network performance issues, and almost 50% of the time, they're below our defined thresholds. That can be attributed to, here you can see, excessively high round trip time, packet loss, as well as high DNS resolution requests. If you also take a quick peek, so basically, because of the network issues here, you can clearly see that the round trip time, packet loss, and DNS is impacting the problem. And actually, right then and there, before even moving anywhere else, you clearly already have enough information. So you could just reach out to the Boston team immediately, network team immediately, and have them investigate these different poor performance metrics we can see that are based on network performance. But on the same view in our messaging triage dashboard, we can also see that ADFS is also not performing exactly up to snuff. So now we're going to check our platform level dashboard to see what is happening with the ADFS proxy in Boston. So here again, we can see that our federation performance was 50% below our defined thresholds, as you can see in this graph here. But we also see that there was some kind of hardware issue going on with the ADFS proxy, as you can see here with the excessively high CPU, RAM, and disk times that are being displayed. So again, rather than contacting Microsoft, we now have more than enough information to go ahead and check with the identity management team so that they can resolve the ADFS proxy issues that we're seeing coming out of Boston. So basically, we can see how, with the various different dashboards I've shown you here, we see how our triage dashboards can breach the silos between your IT departments, show you where the issue lies, avoid the blame game, and go straight to the root cause of the issue. In this case, the Boston network team was alerted to address the network performance issues, and the identity management team was alerted to investigate the ADFS proxy server performance issues, and again, without reaching out to Microsoft. And also we can see here, thanks to our top level dashboard, we saw that even though performance may look great overall, it is important to track performance at the action level as well, at the action as well as the location levels. And that is what I have prepared for you here. Jeff?
Yeah, well, thank you. So, thank you, Garth. I guess the dashboard part was really great, and that was very cool to see. So, at the end of the webinar, so it will be now the the question part. So if you have any question, you can put that in the chat. We can go to the next slide. And Juliette, did you get any question?
Yes, let's go ahead and take some time for questions now.
Let's go quick because we're already late. Yeah?
Yeah. Can you analyze the impacts of Windows application using Office 365 on the user experience?
Garth, you want to answer, or Maz, you want? Well, I guess I will do it. So the answer is yes. So we absolutely can do that. It's part of what we spoke about, the capability monitoring, like is your network, your business environment able to deliver the service, and also not only your users are using Office 365. There's plenty of applications that can do that. There's some marketing applications, sending automatic mail, all this kind of stuff. So yes, with JSX you can monitor the health of this kind of application in order to see if there could be an impact on the end user experience. And you can put that in your triage dashboard if you have some that you want. If you remember that triage dashboard that I show you, network, DFS, etc., you can add columns for Windows application to see at the same time if you have applications that are not running well and that might be a source of issue for your user experience.
Okay, thank you. Next question, would you recommend to put multiple robot users per location, for example, to measure the end user service on multiple floors of the same building?
Well, the technical answer, I'll take this one, Jeff. So the technical answer is yes, you can do that. And in some cases, it may make sense for large locations when you have a complex on-site network. As you can see, sometimes you can have impact on some floors where it doesn't impact others. So it can be a good idea to put a robot user per floor. In this case, you need to define if you want to provide the same service level target to every user in that particular location.
Yep.
Thank you,
questions?
Yeah, can you provide the same kind of dashboard for Skype for Business or SharePoint Online for the triage and the top-level dashboard?
Yes, of course we can. The webinar today was long enough, though we didn't include any of that. But if you're interested, we could do a specific webinar to describe our top-level and triage dashboard for every other significant Office 365 workload.
Yeah, that could be a good idea for another webinar. Yeah.
Great.
We'll see.
So thank you. We're just about to go over time with this one. If we do not get the chance to answer your question, we'll get back to you in the near future. And if you'd like to receive the slide of the presentation, you can let us drop a line in the survey that will show up in your browser in a second. We'll thank you all for your participation and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.